Right. As I mentioned, my name is Fahad Osman. I'll be presenting to you on the road to unlocking exponential growth, focusing on performance marketing. I'm kidding. Sorry, guys. Can you imagine 30 minutes of listening to that guy? Let me start again. Hi, good afternoon. First off, very big thank you to the folks at Martech Vibe for putting on this show and for inviting me to speak. And a big thank you once again to all of you for being here. Let's get started. So, unless you've been living under a rock your entire life, you will recognize this picture. Times Square in all its neon glory, and the perfect background image for an actual title of my presentation. No more marketing. Dramatic, wasn't it? Here's what I really want to talk about. I want to talk about no more product-centric gut feel and push-only marketing, which is something that I think most of us have been guilty of at one time or another in our careers, right? Let's move on to talking about something really important. Me. I'm just kidding. I'm just a segue. Right. You all know what my name is and what I do, so I won't dwell on that. I will, however, share some not so interesting facts about myself, which are also a segue. I'm crazy about shoes, specifically Converse All-Stars. I own about 30 pairs of them. I wear the same thing all the time. White shirts and blue jeans to work and plain black t-shirts at the weekends. Where I spend most of my money is on technology. If there's a gadget, a doodah, a thingamabob out there in the market, I know about it, trust me, and there is a high probability that I own it. I have 2 boys, they're gorgeous and they are my whole world. And my shoe collection, my sense of style, the number of wires at home, and the fact that there are 3 boys running around the house drives my wife, Karen, up the wall. So there's a little bit about me. And it is Karen who is at the center of this presentation, but she isn't the protagonist. No, the protagonist is you. You're the character in the story whose job it is to advance the plot. Karen is the objective. You'll need to get a message about your product to Karen so she'll buy it. Seems easy enough, right? It's not, bear with me. I know it all seems very basic. I'll get to the point in just a minute. You see, there's a few hurdles you'll need to deal with when it comes to getting your message through to Karen. The first is you don't know that much about her, right? The second is how do you get your message across to her in a way that is relevant to her? And finally, how do we make sure that your product USPs are not something that someone else can own? Still basic, I know this is marketing 101, right? So overcome the first hurdle, you need a good targeting plan, usually based on your product attributes, who it's for, when it's for, how much does it cost. All of that will determine your demographic and time targeting. The second hurdle, some good branding, sexy ad, that'll grab Karen's attention. And for the third, assuming your hypothesis worked and your branding grabbed, you need to explain the financial, emotional, lifestyle, and functional USPs of your product, okay? We all saw this on our marketing books. Oh, the metrics, don't forget about the metrics, right? For me, I think it boils down to just one. How much revenue are you making for every marketing dollar spent? It's that glorious culmination of all those mid-funnel metrics. I mean, what's the point otherwise? Now, let's get down into the weeds. Everything on that last slide is wrong. I mean, it's not wrong, but it is, right? The problem is to me is that every one of you is probably nodding and thinking, yeah, I know, this is simple. This guy's an amateur, I'm the best. Oh, I should probably have a snack to reward myself for being so great. But, and going back to my opening slide, the dramatic one, this is exactly the kind of marketing that we shouldn't be doing. Let's roll back for 1 second. The entire approach is old hat and disconnected. The hypothesis is based on a gut feel. What do we think the type of person who will buy my product is? The messaging is one directional, and the approach is focused on the product attributes and how they fit in with someone's lifestyle, not the other way around. Also, this is focused on making money from Karen once and not on building anything meaningful, which reminds me of a story. I'm sure all of you know about Blockbuster. The story goes, in 1993, Blockbuster Video had 3,600 stores in the US, a feat that they accomplished in under 10 years, the fastest growing brand in the world. The growth was insane. There's a meme floating around right now about how quickly they flourished in terms of number of stores. But that meme continues, right? This year, the very last store is shutting down. How did that happen? Like, some people are saying it has to do with the streaming services, Netflix and the others like it. But let's face it, competition is something that every brand faces at all times. Otherwise, we would be constantly in antitrust situations, right? The truth is, Blockbuster was just doing what was on the last couple of slides, talking at its customers and trying to move them away from the competition instead of talking to them and keeping them away from the competition. Okay, let's go back. Now, instead of trying to approach marketing to Karen as a series of hurdles, let's approach it as a series of objectives. Right, the first objective is to understand Karen. The second, to engage and track Karen. And the third, to make it as hard as possible for anyone else to be able to take Karen away from us. Okay, let's take a look at this. Right. I call this the pincer marketing approach, where you have someone coming in from the top and from the bottom, and they're both joined through a fulcrum of strategy. This, to me, is the new world of performance marketing. Let's dive into it. First, the hypotheses are great, right? But they only get you part of the way to where you need to go. And you can end up spending a heck of a lot of money testing them, from wasted media to irrelevant creative to online and digital experiences that don't resonate. Can anyone on this call, hand on heart, tell me that they have invested any time or resources in doing a customer study in the last month, given everything that's changed? Probably not. And I'm pretty sure that the last statement, because there is so little data and research available in our region, it is what we call a data desert. It's been a pain point for us as long as I've been in marketing. And I think we're all just a little bit to blame, unfortunately. I'm going to digress just for 1 second, bear with me, right? To promote something that my team is currently doing. We recently bought into a major multi-market research on the impact of recent events on user behavior across multiple verticals and commodities. The survey stage is just ended and we have the report done in a couple of weeks. And I promise I'll make this report available to every marketer who asks for it. It is hopefully a way that you will be able to understand what has changed over the last few months and how you can leverage it. Right, understanding customers is an investment. Either we learn to do it the right way or we will learn it the hard way. This is objective 1, understand the customers, spend money if you have to, okay? Don't guess where you can. Now, once we have the insight, we will start our incredible and robust CRM systems and write the greatest targeting and creative briefs ever written. Sorry, I'm going to stop again. I've been away from seeing other people's briefs for a while. And recently, since I started my new role, I've started seeing them again in the last 3 months or so. And honestly, shame on all of us. As long as there's one marketer out there who's trying to sneak demographics in as insights, we're all doing a terrible job. The right targeting and the right creative from the right data is not a pipe dream anymore. It used to be hard when you used to talk about big data and unstructured data. That's not the case anymore. Trust me on this, and I cannot overstate it enough. If you invest in the data, it will pay off dividends. A lot of marketers are afraid of taking the plunge into creating a framework of need. I know I was, until someone much, much smarter than me helped me to see how important it was. And I'll tell you what, I'll put my email address on the last slide of this presentation. And I promise, if you send me an email with the subject, I'm afraid of data, I'll set up time for us to talk and come up with a reasonable and cost-effective plan for you. And no one will ever know that you approached me, right? I'm not that smart, but I'll do what I can. That's objective 2. Once you have the customer's attention, make sure you convert every single engagement into a data point. And I'll hopefully help you understand why a little bit later on. Right, now we have the data and we have a system, no matter how simple, to capture more data and structure it. As of now, I have a manual system that captures every single interaction we have, from an email, web banner, landing page, into one of 33 user segments, all manually. Each one of these 33 segments will receive communication from us, and we'll have their actions tracked and bucketed into inferred preferences, which will help us determine what their current place in the purchase funnel is. Are they curious about the platform, the creative, about how others are doing it, about optimization? There's a lot of different areas that our customers want to address. This data is something that will build and build until we have a super clear picture of who each user is and what their needs are. And Do you know what this costs? It costs $4,000 a year and rolling up your sleeves. That's really no excuse for you not to be doing this. Now, I'm going to digress just one more time. I'm in one of those moods. 99% of the marketers in this region are doing a little bit of one and a little bit of two. So you remember the slide with the circles? That's 1 and 2. You push fresh customers through the system through the marketing equivalent of sheep herding into the gate and let the farmer or the salespeople or the e-commerce engine deal with them. Then on to the next roundup, which we call a campaign. In most organizations that I've dealt with in the last 5 years, the role of client retention doesn't sit in marketing, which is really weird. It's like, I went to a party, I made a new friend, went out to a movie with that new friend, and then introduced him or her to a colleague of mine. And I never saw that friend again, right? I mean, it's not a relationship anyone wants to have. It's beyond wasteful, and to me, a failure on the part of any marketer who's ever said, hey, we generated the leads we needed, we succeeded, we're going home. Because the old KPI of E2R, it's dead, at least to anyone who matters. You know what's taken its place? E2R over the entire lifetime of a customer. And before you think to yourself, is he kidding? How am I supposed to track that? I want you to imagine one thing. Imagine having a target that, if you do your job even half right, is easy to hit. Year in, year out, just by sending the right communication to the right customers at the right time, based on the right data, you control and curate, your customers will come back time and time again. And the marketing-led E2R lifetime value will naturally grow, and you get all the credit. Right, let's go back to the beginning. I think you've noticed by now it's something I like doing. I like closing the loop on things, and because I promised you a case study. This isn't just a picture of Times Square. It's a picture of Times Square that was shot on an iPhone, Karen's iPhone to be specific. In 2015, my wife and I were avid Android users, predominantly because I had a bizarre love-hate relationship with Apple, partly due to intellectual arrogance and mostly not wanting to spend that much money. One day, she came across the Shot on iPhone campaign. It was everywhere. Billboards, digital, print, for anyone who still reads print, and it stuck. Long story short, she bought an iPhone, and she hasn't had a new iPhone on average every 16 months. She's now rocking a gold iPhone 11 Max Pro with sprinkles. That's it. That's the whole case. Obviously, there is a bunch of stuff that happened before and during the iPhone 6 and the 11, right? The first was the data. Understanding of the customer beyond the demographics, which is something Apple does incredibly well. And it manifests itself in honing in on the one thing that will sway people, one message based on customer need. And with this campaign, the Shot on iPhone campaign, it was all about taking great pictures, simple. And that's something that resonated really well with Karen. I mean, they've done it before, right? If you guys remember the iPod campaign, which started the entire school of Apple marketing around not the capacity, not the size, not the battery life. No, it's just the fact that it held 10,000 songs. That was the entire campaign. It also helped that the first time Karen saw the ad was on a maternity site. It was also on TripAdvisor, on every photography site, on every subreddit dedicated to astronomy, sports, the outdoors. Where it wasn't was on tech sites, which, by the way, if there was a brief that said tech anywhere in it, you know the agency would have put the ad on a tech site. Because iPhone doesn't get positioned as a phone or a piece of tech. It gets positioned as great pictures. That just happens to come from a phone. Now, a lot of this targeting information came from customer research. When are people most likely to want to take a memorable photo? And once the campaign launches, the data that's collected is incredible. Age, gender, location, product, type, sites, add-on, dwell time, principal site, or reseller, all mingled together in an incredible symphony of which ads are working to which audience, for which devices, at what price point. Yes, Apple is infamous for their walled garden when it comes to retaining customers within its ecosystem. But, and as someone who is a massive nerd and who famously changes hardware every 3 to 4 months, it's really not that difficult to move operating systems. What it is hard to do, and here's the clever bit, for people is to move from a very clear understanding of what something does to a complex listing of capabilities and numbers and specs. The very thing that attracted Karen in the first place causes her to actively shun competitive efforts. Even in this picture, she's holding her iPad. Now, you couple all of this with the data that has been collected through the multiple purchase cycles Karen has been through, from the 6 to the 11, right? Because, and as we all know, the only way in or out of anything to do with Apple is through your Apple ID. That creates a perfect storm of need. In this case, photos, passion, the kids, behavioral data. 1, 2, 3. And that means, and here's where the exponential growth part comes in. You thought I'd forgotten, didn't you? The brand spent maybe, I don't know, a couple of $100 acquiring Karen as a customer. But because that acquisition stemmed from a real understanding of what the product means for her, not what it can do for her, and continuing to build on that understanding, Karen's now a customer for life. Since then, and this is true, right? She's traded her Acer for a MacBook. Her first tablet was an iPad. And that one time I tried to bring her back to the Android world was a failed, teary experiment, which lasted 2 days and cost me a brand new flagship phone. And obviously, it's not to say that Apple is the only one that's mastered this 1, 2, 3 punch, right? The one that allows you to run the same campaign or proposition for years on end and have it deliver and scale, right? Emirates has done it with travel luxury, where people will actively avoid other cheaper options because they get so pampered when they fly Emirates. And did you know that unlike most carriers, the bulk of the point redemptions on Emirates are not for free flights, they're for upgrades? That just goes to show you the power of the proposition that they build. People want to fly them because they want what it represents in terms of travel comfort, in terms of, you know, treating yourself when you do something as arduous as traveling. Amazon has built their marketing growth engine on utility and choice, right? Utility in having everything in one place, and choice through also having everything in one place. And I'll bet you that you don't remember the last Amazon ad you saw, simply because the focus isn't on Amazon as a brand, but on the products it carries. And also, I like to think that TikTok has done the same with entertainment, tying user need for uplifting content with an algorithm that learns about the user as they consume the content, with the delivery of even more pertinent content the more they use the app. And it all happens in the app, right? So the attention is absolute. And this is the clever bit to me, okay? It allows people to share that content freely anywhere else, which means that other users who are not on TikTok can find TikTok content, okay? Draws them in, and repeats the cycle of creating and curating better and better content experiences for them. The one thing that all of these have in common, one is a hardware company, one is an airline, one is a logistics service, and the other one is an entertainment app, is they have managed to understand the core of the customer and relate that to customer lifetime value. It's not just about the single transaction, it's how do I get more out of this individual customer that I've spent hard money in terms of understanding, addressing, and then bringing into my fold. Right, let me sum this up. You need data for every product you're trying to sell. What is that shot on iPhone or fly better that your brand can start a relationship with? Second, once you have the user's attention, please don't leave it up to the sales teams to be the only people managing that relationship. Their job is to convince them to buy what they're currently thinking about. And your job, this is important, is to make them think about the next engagement, the next insight, the next purchase. We are the future makers. The people who are in operations and sales are the ones who are tasked with making sure the now happens. And finally, that's really it. If you've done 1 and 2, you would have done a better job than 99.997% of all the brands out there. And believe me when I tell you this, I have seen a lot of people just doing 1 and 2 in a very transactional manner, not thinking about what comes next, not thinking about how they can be building relationships, because you know what? The way that the systems have been designed haven't been designed for the customers. They've been designed to hit that one target that we're supposed to hit. That's it from me, right? Except to say, I really hope that you found some value in what I presented, that you wake up tomorrow and think to yourself, how can I start creating a better bond with new customers as a way to turn them into lifelong ones that get me a nice big pay rise? And as promised, here's my email address. Please, 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 please don't spam me. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation, Fahad. I think we have time to take a couple of questions. So I'm going to bring up the first question for you. There's a question that says, have B2B marketers been able to effectively implement TikTok into their marketing strategy? And can you perhaps share an example of where this has happened?
I think every brand and every type of marketing is implementable on TikTok simply because TikTok focuses on content, right? If you look at every sale as a funnel, every new sale as a funnel, you want to make sure that there are brands that you care about, that you're interacting with. We have proven that TikTok delivers much, 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 much higher levels of engagement for brand advertisers than any other platform. Much higher levels of likes and shares and comments and people wanting to engage with the brand leads to a dopamine hit, right? Whenever people see great content, and this is the crux of the matter, it has to be great content, you have to be able to follow it up with a message that gets them to act. Yes, we have seen some successes. Obviously, B2B brands are usually a little bit late to the game because developing a robust B2B strategy on a new platform isn't something easy, because obviously you have to do the multi-influencer mapping. But we have seen brands deliver great B2B results at the front of the funnel. And we have some new products which are going to be released very shortly that will help with the conversion toward the end of the funnel. If you want to have a discussion around the B2B side of things, please let me know, because B2B is my passion. I love anything to do with the B2B space. I spent a lot of time there and I can talk about it till the cows come home.